In this video, we're going to review the stages of language development, which research shows is essentially the same cross-culturally. So regardless of the language that a child speaks, children essentially develop the ability to use language. This video is going to cover the stages of language development. We know from the story of Jeannie Wiley that you've already seen at this point about something called critical periods for the development of language. And we know that if children are not exposed to their first language before around the age of 5, their ability to learn that language progressively declines to the point where, like in Jeannie's case, by the time they reach puberty, if they have not yet been exposed in a robust way to language, they may learn words but will be unable to properly use grammar, which is really what language is. It's the ability not just to use words, but to put those words in an order that makes sense and to form sentences. So these are the stages of language development. The babbling stage, which begins around 6 months, the one word or the holophrase stage, which occurs around a year, the naming explosion, which occurs around 18 months. Around 18 months of age, children begin to acquire new words so rapidly that it's hard to even keep track. I remember that with both of my girls. The 2-word stage at around 2 years, and then that is characterized by what we call telegraphic speech, where children are speaking in short, simple sentences. So here's a little bit more about each one. So in the babbling stage, we're going to see a video clip in a moment of a child who's in the babbling stage. Children are learning how to follow conversational rules like taking turns with vocalizations. Even though they're not speaking, they're kind of practicing the same skills. Babies make almost all sounds in all languages, and what happens is as they're developing language and they're being exposed to sounds in their whatever language is spoken at home, those sounds get narrowed down to only those which are required in order to speak their native language. A little bit more on that to come when we talk about learning a foreign language and some advantages that bilinguals have. The B, P, M, and A sounds are the most common, so you might know children who have hard times with like R's or L's because those are sounds that develop later and are a little bit more difficult. And there's no link between sound and meaning at this stage, so they are simply babbling. There's absolutely no meaning behind what they are babbling. I love this little clip right here.
They need to work on that, right? Yes, okay. Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Oh no, it's not this one. This is the grand finale of this one. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking.
So what you see happening here in this adorable clip is this baby who's in the babbling stage engaging in taking turns with vocalization, using gesturing, and all of these kinds of things like language skills, but they're not actually obviously making any kind of sense with what they're saying. They're just exhibiting characteristics of babies who are in that babbling stage. And you could see what a great job the adult in the picture is doing at going back and forth with them. That's such an important thing that we, even when babies are not old enough to be creating meaningful language on their own, it's so important for us to be modeling it for them all the time. And so I absolutely love this video clip. So in the one-word stage, children are understanding multi-word sentences, but they themselves are only uttering single words. And usually those single words are monosyllabic, meaning there's only one syllable. So in this stage, a 1-year-old saying milk, that might mean give me milk, but they're not speaking in those multiple word utterances yet, so they can understand them from us. Around 18 months, like I was saying, the naming explosion takes place and children start averaging up to 9 new words a day. As a new parent, when my oldest daughter was born, I remember another parent with a child a little bit older than she was telling me how she was keeping track of all the words and they have to know X number of words by the time they're 18 months old. And so, of course, like being a new parent, being nervous, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to, count all of her words. And I literally have a list of all maybe like the first 100 or so words that she uttered. But right around this 18-month point, I remember her words, the naming explosion occurred, and she started learning and saying words so rapidly that there was no way I could keep track anymore. So I remember that very vividly with my oldest daughter. In the 2-word stage, children are starting to utter multiple words. They're dividing experiences into categories of movers, movable objects, and location. So if they're talking about Alex throwing the ball, they're not going to say Alex threw the ball. It's just Alex ball. Examples of this are, other examples I should say, are hi mommy, baby sleep, bye bye doggy, here pretty, all gone doggy. So again, like 2-word stage, we call this type of speech telegraphic speech because children they're speaking like you would in a telegraph. Come right back to that. Short, simple sentences. Back in the day when people communicated via telegraph, you had to pay per word. So you wanted to keep the telegraphs very short and sweet, but still convey meaning. And that's exactly what this telegraphic speech is like, that emerges like between 18 to 24 months of age. Children are only using nouns and verbs. There's no articles or prepositions. They're not using tense, no plural. They're not using plural endings on their nouns or anything like that. This is my Olivia at 22 months. Let's see if I can get it to work. Here it is.
Do cheese.
Mommy, Daddy, pictures.
Pictures, right.
So we were taking pictures of her, but instead of saying Mommy and Daddy are taking pictures, Mommy and Daddy are taking pictures of me, she just said Mommy, Daddy, pictures. She's speaking in that telegraphic speech. Around 2 years of age, and she was a little younger than 2 there. She's probably about, like 21 or 22 months there. So at 2 years of age plus, children are learning how to use grammar. They start using modifiers like adjectives and adverbs and articles. They're starting to learn the correct subject, verb, object order, so they're learning syntax. They're using what we call morphemes and phonemes. So morphemes and phonemes are basic units of grammar, or basic units of words, I should say, that help us to use proper grammar. Morphemes are the smallest meaningful units that make up words and change the word's meaning. So an example of a morpheme is adding a prefix or a suffix onto a word, changes its tense, for example. We'll look at an example in 1 second. Phonemes are the smallest unit of sound in a word. So morphemes. The word churches has 2 morphemes in it. Church as. Cars is 2 morphemes. It's the word car and then the S on the end, which obviously makes the word plural. So it changes the meaning of the word. I like to think of morphemes. Morphemes morph the meaning of a word. So if I add ed on the end of want, I have wanted, and that morphs or changes the meaning of the word to make it past tense. So wanted has 2 morphemes. Cars has 2 morphemes. Taller has 2 morphemes. Phonemes, on the other hand, are the smallest units of sound that make up a word. Here we are, the word sheep has 5 letters, but it has 3 sounds or 3 phonemes. Sh, e, p. If you want to pause the video for a second, figure out how many phonemes are in your name. Count the number of sounds that you hear. And finally, syntax syntax and semantics, I should say, are also necessary as we develop the ability to use grammar, because syntax is us using proper sentence structure. So subject, verb, object is in English the sentence structure that's used. So it's the arrangement of the words and the phrases to create well-formed sentences within a language. Surface structure refers to simply reading words in the correct syntax. We could have a sentence like this one here that is correct syntactically, it has the correct syntax, but makes no sense, therefore semantically is incorrect. Semantics is the meaning behind a language. So when I read a sentence, that is deep structure that I'm examining. I'm looking for the meaning in the word combinations. Pigs fly supremely. Syntactically, it makes sense. We've got a subject, a verb, and an adverb modifying the verb. However, It makes no sense because we know that pigs obviously can't fly. They certainly cannot fly supremely, right? So syntax and semantics are just other two elements of grammar that you should understand. These two sentences have the same blank structure but different blank structure. So if we go back to the slide for 1 second, we talked about surface structure, which is simply like the syntax of the sentence. It's just the words that are there. Whereas semantics, we're referring to deep structure. We're looking for meaning in word combination. So I'm asking you, these two sentences have the same blank structure but different blank structure. So they have the same this but different that, okay? Olivia passed the test. The test was passed by Olivia. So pause for a second and see if you can figure out which structure they have in common and which is different. Hopefully you said they have the same deep structure, meaning they both have the same meaning. Olivia passed the test is the same as saying the test was passed by Olivia, but they obviously have different surface structure in that the order of the words or the syntax of the sentences is a bit different.